Welcome to the City Club of Portland, Oregon's premier citizens forum. We're delighted you're with us today. I'm Don Williams, president of City Club. Our speaker today is Portland City Commissioner Sam Adams. The program is entitled From Here to There in Tomorrow's Portland. For the benefit of our radio and television audiences, please turn off your cell phones and other electronic devices. Join us next week for the last Friday forum this summer, and our program is entitled Hot Town, Summer in the City, Climate Change in Oregon's Past, Present, and Future. And I'm sure that you're thankful that I avoided my strong urge to sing that title rather than to say it. Our speakers at that program will be three accomplished geologists. They know Oregon's record of climate change, and they will address specific examples related to their research, their training, and policy interests. The program will be moderated by City Club member Richard Ross, president of Oregon Paleo Lands Institute. First, a few announcements. You still have the opportunity to attend one of the excellent City Club dinner salons. Check out the brochure, our website, for dates, and contact Kim at the City Club office for reservations. Join us at the City Club Commons on Tuesday, July 31st at 5:30 for a panel discussion on the Portland Development Commission. It will include the current chair, Mark Rosenbaum, and two former chairs, Elaine Cogan and John Russell. Members of this panel have helped guide development in Portland since the 1970s. They have decades of experience in PDC governance. And the moderator of that program will be Dr. Nohad Toulon, founding dean of Portland State's College of Urban and Public Affairs. The New Leaders Council is a vital part of City Club's activities. They are sponsoring a dinner discussion with talk show host Nick Fish on Thursday, July 26th. Fish moved to Portland without knowing anybody in town and has established himself by joining a successful law practice, taking leadership on several nonprofit boards, and starting a popular television program on public affairs. To sign up, contact Kim. And also remember the New Leaders Council walking tours of Portland neighborhoods this summer. They'll start with the St. John neighborhood on July 28th. New members are the lifeblood of City Club. The City Club is an organization. They plan the programs, they study the issues, write reports, and then advocate for public change. This summer, we're offering a special incentive for new members. Join before August 31st, and you won't have to renew until October 2008. Margaret Eichman is in the back with the details, and evidently a lot of people are taking us up on that special incentive because I have 13 or so new members today. I'm going to introduce them. Please hold your applause until all are introduced. And I think it's also important to tell a little bit about what they do when we're introducing them, just so people know. Todd Borkowitz, landscape architect, and Tom Bennett, urban designer, are both from PB Placemaking. Lee Dose, Jeff Green, Director of Public Relations and Development for the Oregon Business Association, Jules Copel-Bailey, Economist, Sustainable Development Specialist for Echo Northwest, Sarah Patterson, Publisher Attorney for the Sarah Patterson Marketing Group, Lawrence Odell, Assistant Director of Land Use and Transportation for Washington County. Stephanie Mendoza-Gray, a Government Relations Specialist for the City of Portland. Kara Unger-Gutierrez, Executive Director of the Oregon Council for the Humanities. Patricia Young, Lisa Zuniga, Editor for Harper One, and Susan O'Toole, an attorney in Portland. Please join me in welcoming these new members. We're fortunate to have terrific corporate sponsors for this program. This quarter, our sponsors are Stoll Reeves, LLP, and Zimmer Gunsel Frasca Architects. And please join me again in thanking them for their generosity. $271 million, $400 million, $269 million, and $422 million. These figures are not the national debt for some small developing countries. They are the cost estimates to make some essential improvements in the City of Portland's transportation system. For example, the $422 million figure is the price for unmet city maintenance needs. To pave 127 miles of unpaved streets in Portland would cost another $269 million. Some allege the Portland City Council has a tendency to solve problems by raising taxes and fees instead of working creatively within existing resources. A response might be, there's been no increase in the 24-cent per gallon state gas tax since 1993, and during that same period, transportation inflation has been 70%. Commissioner Sam Adams oversees the Office of Transportation and the Bureau of Environmental Services. He's also the council liaison for small businesses and higher education. He is the elected official who fields complaints about many transportation issues. For example, he might hear concerns from Portland bike riders. According to a recent survey, 37% of them feel there are inadequate bike lanes and trails. This lack of infrastructure keeps many of them from biking to work. He also responds to callers who assert bike trips are mainly recreational and bike lanes are a drain on the city budget. He listens to those who advocate for an expansion of the streetcar system and receives complaints about the cost of Portland's aerial trams. And of course, he might also read press reports. For example, one citizen's description of a neighborhood street in East Portland. Cars creep slowly down the road, bouncing and swaying as they navigate the maze of chuck holes. We're pleased to have Commissioner Adams as our City Club speaker, and he will separate fact from some common misperceptions about financing, priorities, and future transportation plans. Sam Adams graduated from the University of Oregon with a degree in political science. He started his political career as an intern for Peter DeFazio when he was chair of the Lane County Commission. He worked in various capacities for DeFazio's campaign staff when he ran for Congress. Sam met Representative Vera Katz in the early 90s when he worked in the Oregon legislature. He served as her chief of staff for 11 years after she was elected mayor of Portland. During that time, he helped lead projects such as revitalizing the Willamette River and expanding light rail service to the Portland International Airport. Sam Adams was elected to the Portland City Council in 2005. Please welcome Commissioner Sam Adams.
Thank you, Don, for that very gracious introduction, and it's an absolute pleasure to be back here at the City Club. I've never seen passion for any other issue be more intense, a problem more intractable, or options so hotly debated. It was on the front page of every newspaper and the top of every newscast for weeks. In fact, history will likely regard it as the most important transportation-related question of our generation. And if you haven't already guessed, the issue I'm talking about is should or should we not allow duct tape on Portland streets and sidewalks? I guess it's all about perspective, isn't it? Context is important, and to my way of thinking, a great transportation system never guarantees a great city, but a lousy transportation system nearly always guarantees a lousy city. Why? Because transportation should not be an end unto itself, but must serve to promote more important civic goals, such as an educated citizenry engaged in lifelong learning, locally owned businesses ready to win sales at home and in the world's marketplace while providing family wage jobs, a sustainable and green and beautiful city in balance with nature, a robust creative and science community, affordable housing, equality of opportunity, a safe city that embraces the world and flourishes as a hub for trade, an effective regional partnership between citizens, labor, business, advocacy groups, and government. Now, we all know that Portland gets high praise for its transportation innovations. Just yesterday, CNN reported, quote, "Probably the best asset that Portland has to offer travelers is its extensive and reliable transit system." This feedback is great for our collective ego, but we need to stay humble in the knowledge that our transportation system does not adequately serve tens of thousands of Portlanders, and we must be honest with ourselves that the 30-year transportation vision we are now operating under has outlived its usefulness, that we face major new challenges, and that key decision points that will shape our city and our regions for generations to come are fast approaching. Today I'm going to summarize the key transportation challenges I believe we face, our efforts to address them over the past 24 months, and then I'll transition to potential solutions and wrap up with community benefits I see as we embrace a transportation transformation. The challenge, first and foremost, and Don touched upon it, Portland streets are killing and injuring people despite the fact we know how to make them safer. Streets like 82nd Avenue, 122nd Avenue, Foster, West Burnside, these are dangerous streets because we lacked adequate funds to implement safety solutions, to adequately enforce the laws, and to educate road users. And when I say safety solutions, what I mean are the most basic things like sidewalks. 60 miles of Portland's busiest streets, not all the streets, just 60 miles of our busiest streets, the streets that people use to walk on, for instance, to catch transit. Over 60 miles of the streets in this city lack sidewalks. Half of Southwest Portland's busiest streets lack sidewalks. 60 miles, that's the distance from here to Hood River. Such a safety gap in our with such a safety gap in our transportation system, I don't blame parents for not wanting their kids to walk or ride their bikes to school, which in turn contributes to the alarming increase in childhood obesity. And I understand why safety keeps more adults from riding their bikes than it should. Congressman Earl Blumenauer rightly calls bicycling the most efficient form of transportation ever conceived, and yet only 3.5% of the city's travel trips within the city take advantage of such efficiency because so many perceive our streets to be unsafe. Our second transportation challenge. A basic road and bridge system is crumbling. Early estimates put the repair bill at $422 million today, and $900 million more for each year that we wait. Add another $325 million for the county's Willamette River bridges. The city nor the county has the kind of money to make these repairs or a revenue resource to get it. These antiquated streets also contribute substantially to another not-so-obvious problem, the $1.4 billion Willamette River Big Pipe Project, the largest public works project in the city's history. More than 60% of our stormwater pollution comes from our streets and roads. Our third major transportation issue is the erosion of our land use laws. Measure 37 claims filed in our area threaten to blow out the region's urban growth boundary, the most important tool we have for keeping a region scaled for people. If the UGB goes, likely so too will the remaining capacity of our road and freeway system. This is a disaster in the making. Our fourth challenge is gridlock. Each morning and evening, 7 million motor vehicle trips try to squeeze into Portland's arterial streets and freeways. With so many people stuck waiting in traffic congestion, unabated, it will cost the local economy $1 billion a year by 2025. And that brings me to my final two transportation challenges, number 5 and 6 on my list, global warming and peak oil. Kudos to Eric Stinn for his forward-thinking plan on CO2 gas emissions reductions. Kudos as well to Dan Saltzman for his leadership on our peak oil response plan, and to Randy Leonard on his biodiesel local production and sales strategy. This work is very important because the age of cheap energy is over. Consider this. The Environmental Protection Agency reports that America is now spending more on transportation than food. And it's worse for the working poor, an issue dear to my heart, who now spend more on transportation than housing and food combined. All right, up front, I know I've hit you hard with the doom and gloom of the facts and the challenges facing transportation, but I've done so to make a point. The issues that we face are numerous, very tough, and more lethal than ever. But our collective transportation challenges are also very solvable with a smart new regional vision that integrates regional transportation and land use planning, wise investment that diversify transportation choices, and some good old Portland-style gumption. Our new approach started 24 months ago when I was appointed the city's Transportation Commissioner. As Transportation Commissioner, I am determined to lead Portland's transportation agency in a new direction of increased sustainability, accountability, and results. With the appointment of Sue Keel as Portland's new Transportation Director, most all the senior managers in PDOT are new to their posts. We have completed 2 outside management reviews, and we are implementing the changes from a recent audit. The agency's budget for 2 years in a row has been put together with outside citizen review and labor participation. And we don't just wait for transportation problems to come to us. We go out looking for them. As my staff will tell you, and the PDOT staff, we've held 15 neighborhood transportation town halls in the last 2 years, and 8 neighborhood and business district walkabouts. And we are doing everything we can to get the basics right, like paving and repairing potholes. We are increasing our pothole repairs. We have increased our potholes repairs by 30%. And if we don't see it first, call our pothole line at 503-823-BUMP, and we'll get it filled. That's 503-823-BUMP. We've strengthened our partnerships. For the first time ever, all the transportation providers in Portland meet regularly to focus on operational improvements. With the Oregon Department of Transportation, we passed bills in the state legislature that give us the authority to clear more quickly away disabled vehicles on the freeway. 50% of our congestion is the result of non-repeating delays such as crashes and construction. And with TriMet and Metro and Milwaukee and Clackamas County and a lot of other people, we successfully lobbied the state legislature for $250 million to expand light rail from Milwaukee to downtown and $20 million to build streetcars. And along with our investments in South Waterfront and along the east side, we are in the midst of the largest extension of streetcar trackage since the 1900s. And we're trying to make an industry out of our streetcar efforts. Congressman Peter DeFazio got us started by securing a $4 million federal grant to help build the first Oregon-made streetcar. And the state legislature saw a good job creation opportunity and invested $20 million more. With more than 80 delegations from around the country that have come to visit our streetcar, I hope it's only a matter of time before Oregon streetcars are running throughout the nation. And after inheriting costly mistakes early in the process, we finished the OHSU tram on revised timeline and revised budget, with the private sector picking up 35% of its costs. And I'm so lucky that my name rhymes so easily with tram. The City Council approved the initial I-5, I-84 loop group study recommendations, and we're now looking for resources to do the next phase of needed studies. We move forward another important project, the Burnside-Cooch Couplet Plan. We put it through the ringer with a year of additional outside scrutiny, improved it by adding an express streetcar line, and ultimately got it approved by the City Council with unanimous support. We held Portland's first Transportation Safety Summit and then successfully lobbied for $11 million in city funding to improve Portland's most dangerous intersections, those crosswalks on 23rd and Belmont and Alberta and other main streets across the city, 100 new school crossing beacons throughout the city, medians for pedestrians on 82nd, 122nd, and streets around the city. These are all part of that effort. And I want to thank Mayor Tom Potter, who was the first on the City Council to grasp the importance of this safety project. We completed the city's first Freight Master Plan, which identifies key corridors for safe, effective freight movement so vital to our economy, that minimize the impact of trucks in our neighborhoods. And from that plan, we have almost completed the complete rebuild of the Columbia Boulevard North Killingsworth intersection to eliminate dangerous turns for trucks. For bicyclists, we put Portland on the track to become the first major city with the bike platinum status. We're planning the next wave of major bicycle investments and aggressive expansion of the Bicycle Boulevard network. These are low-traffic, low-impact streets designed to accommodate the auto needs of residents, but where the bicycle rules the road. And just yesterday, we dedicated the Hollywood Sewer and Streetscape Improvement Project with the neighborhood business leaders saying the city was great to work with, doing everything it could to minimize the negative impacts of construction and boost all the possible positives. Now, while I'm the commissioner in charge with the fancy title, I can tell you this is very much a group effort, and I'd like anyone who's had anything to do with any of it to please stand up. All the city employees, Sue Keel and the PDOT employees, my staff, any of the staff from the City Council, please stand up. Give them a round of applause. They work very, very hard. So that's the highlight of the good work underway to address some of our transportation dilemmas. Let's discuss solutions on the drawing board. Portland enjoys a reputation for being ahead of the curve thanks to the people of the city who embrace innovation. Some of the additional solutions I will discuss today are in the works, others are decades from fruition, but all are intended to call upon the best of what it means to be a Portlander. I'm going to discuss the solutions for our safety and maintenance deficits as one package. I recently hosted 5 town halls along with my staff and bureau teams to discuss the unglamorous but important issue that has been 25 years in the making. After 2 years of improving the operations of the city's transportation department and unsuccessfully begging the Oregon State Legislature for more money, we are going to have to look at local transportation funding options. It might not be widely understood, but there is little mystery to how we got here. As project costs have skyrocketed, as the price we pay for raw materials and health insurance has gone up, in the meantime, the amount of money we receive from the state via the gas tax has gone down. This has resulted in 7 years of budget cuts from current service levels for the Portland Office of Transportation. Now, on this issue, I always get asked some good, tough, similar questions, and I'm going to try today to go through 5 of them rather succinctly. The first question I always get, and it is a good question: did the tram eat the money that could have gone to street maintenance? No, the $8.5 million that was spent came from tax increment resources that are available only for projects within the South Waterfront District, and by state law, tax increment resources cannot be used for transportation maintenance. Should we have spent some of the money used to build streetcar or light rail for maintenance? The bulk of the funds used to pay for our large transit projects come from federal transit funds, lottery bond, and tax increment financing. Legally, these cannot be used for street maintenance. Aren't Oregon's taxes already high enough? Well, if you look at an apples-to-apples comparison, Oregon's transportation-related fees and taxes on a per-gallon basis are the lowest in the U.S. western states. If transportation is so important, why not cut less important other city programs and use the savings to help pay to address the backlog? Well, given the $422 million price tag, it does become a question of trade-offs. That's nearly the value of the city's general fund budget in its entirety. So what we'd be looking at very quickly are trade-offs such as cuts to police, fire, or parks, and each of them have their own maintenance backlogs and unmet needs. Why can't we just cut out all the waste from transportation and use the savings for maintenance? Well, we're always looking for ways to continuously improve PDOT and its operations. But again, it's been cutting its own budget for 7 years. And with the gas prices so high, and this is probably the most misunderstood aspect of this issue, with gas prices so high, you in government must be making a mint off the revenues. A lot of people think that the tax is on the price of gas. The gas tax is actually on the gallon of gas, and when gas prices go up, the utilization of gas plateaus or goes down. And it is a state gas tax, which means for every dollar we pay in the Portland region for gas taxes, we only get back 46 cents. In terms of what new funding options might look like, it's too early to tell. I've created a diverse 60-person steering committee to audit how PDOT currently spends its money, to look at the list of identified needs and prioritize them and recommend funding options. Of course, the best tax is the tax that somebody else pays, but that's not an option for us. But I am intrigued with Seattle's recent success of using a three-legged funding stool. Maybe a modest monthly basic street safety and maintenance fee, a small local gas tax, and some other revenue option is the way to go. It's better maybe than loading it all onto one tax and spreading the pain among all the users. In looking at this issue, I want to make sure that everyone sees the fine print on the funding packages, and that is why we're doing so much outreach. And if you go on to commissionersam.com, you'll see an incredible amount of detail about this issue. For instance, if we have a $422 million maintenance and safety backlog, that would take $40 million a year for 10 years. If we say that's too high, $20 million will take 20 years, and you get sort of the idea of how it goes. And any proposal I bring forward will show exactly when, where, and how the money will be spent. Now, we knew when I rolled out this issue that it would be unpopular, but I must say the feedback from the 5 town halls has been very encouraging. And that said, I'm cautiously optimistic that we will have something to present to the City Council for consideration in January. Since my funding efforts are focused on our maintenance safety deficits, the regional and state funding efforts that are underway to expand transportation capacity must continue as well. And whatever transportation package we ultimately come up with, I guarantee it will include aggressive plans for green streets. This year I sponsored the nation's first comprehensive green street policy for the city, for any major city in our city. As we build and rebuild our streets, we'll employ green street technology which saves the taxpayer money because it addresses road-produced pollution close to the source instead of piping it to the treatment plant. And I didn't know he would be here, but this is my opportunity. I had the opportunity to go back and testify before his committee on the issue of green streets, and he is a leader in getting green streets approved by the federal government as part of the overall transportation strategy. He's doing a fantastic job on this issue, and I'd like to publicly thank Congressman David Wu. Thank you for your excellent leadership on this issue. The solutions to our land use start with passage of a ballot measure and an extension, and a fortification of more robust development around transit stops. It is absolutely imperative that we keep our land use laws in place, fix the parts that need fixing, but keep them in place. Indeed, yes. Indeed, much of what Portland has done better than the rest of the country harkens back to previous generations of leadership who recognized the relationship between transportation and land use. Light rail, streetcars, safe streets for bicycling and walking. None of these are possible without land use laws that encourage a more compact and humane development pattern. When you receive your ballot this November, please take out that number 2 pencil and vote yes for the measure that will fix ballot measure 37. We also need more vigorous transit stationary development. We also need more vigorous transit stationary development. The slow pace of redevelopment along the Yellow Line in North Portland concerns me. And at my direction, the Portland Office of Transportation, working with the Bureau of Planning, has initiated a review of the Banfield and I-205 transit stops to better understand the barriers for redevelopment. We need to review our zoning, building codes, planning practices, and market analysis as they relate to transportation area development. Every transit station in this city should be a vibrant micro community with its own unique sense of place and identity. We need to maximize the return on our multi-billion-dollar transit investments with stationary development that makes walking, bicycling, and the transit the easiest and best set of travel choices. We got some land use people out there, that's good. The solutions to congestion need to be assertive and regional in scope. And as the third most trade-dependent region in the nation, congestion is much more than just an inconvenience. It will be a $1 billion hole in our pocket by 2025 if we do nothing. We need to modernize our freeways, but more importantly, we need to reduce congestion by creating real alternatives to personal auto dependency. We must use our existing right-of-way, fully 1/3 of the city's current landmass, more efficiently. As I've already discussed, it starts with fixing the basic infrastructure we already have, but it must follow forward with dramatic diversity, increased diversity in good travel choices. So our solution to congestion is achieved at the same time that we make real progress on our goals to reduce global warming and peak oil impacts. And what would Portland look like if we implemented solutions to global warming and peak oil? Well, ironically enough, it would look a lot like Portland circa 1920, a time when the main means of motion were your feet, streetcars, and bikes, and maybe a few hundred horses, but we'll leave them off the vision for now. And it was an era where we had more than 100 miles of streetcar tracks. Streetcars were literally setting the footprint for how the city would grow. In fact, one of Portland's finest charms, our distinctive neighborhoods, is a direct result of our original streetcar grid. To me, it's obvious that we should grow where we know it works and grow how we know it works and return the streetcar to its original stature in this city, along with light rail. We are, as I mentioned earlier, the 30-year regional rail and transit plan is just about lived its useful life. So we have initiated in partnership with our regional partners to initiate a citywide, followed by a region-wide rail transit plan that will determine the best corridors for rail expansion in the next 30 years. For our new rail transit plan, I foresee new light rail and express streetcar lines integrated with more frequent bus services, going more places, more car sharing, bike boulevards, sidewalks, and walking paths with appropriate auto use and new deployment of transportation management tools to ensure that you can get where you need to go, when you need to go, without using your car. And to ensure we are disciplined about linking transportation and land use, I believe that we should set a goal, a very aggressive goal, to accommodate our share of the projected regional growth, which Metro anticipates our share to be 300,000 more Portlanders by 2035 within a quarter mile of existing or planned to be rail transit stops. That will be a huge task, but a worthwhile goal to try for. Why? Because it will simultaneously encourage responsible, transportation supportive development while protecting our existing single-family neighborhoods from the impact of undue growth. And with all the light rail and streetcar projects underway and planned, it is a fair question to ask, do we really need more? My answer is an emphatic yes. As recently reported in the media, many of the cities that we compete with for talent and businesses and sales are doing much more than we are. Denver has a 12-year program to build 119 miles of light rail and commuter rail. Houston has a $7.6 billion initiative to build 73 miles of light rail. In Portland, we cannot afford to fall behind. Our efforts will relieve congestion by leaving the freeways and major streets for the most valuable trips. Freight, and for those whom transit or carpooling or human motion is not a realistic choice. Creating a true diversity of travel choices also means dealing with the disruptions of building it and the questions of how to pay for it. And right now, there are over 30 current and planned public and private projects worth an estimated $1 billion that impact the right-of-way in downtown. It is a Herculean task to keep things moving as normal as possible. But I meet almost every other week with PDOT, TriMet, small business owners, residents, and 30 representatives from 35 stakeholders under the banner of Keep Portland Moving to provide assistance, to coordinate the reduction of our collective impacts. And there's a hotline because it's going to take a whole village. 503-865-MOVE. If you see something that concerns you, if you see a place that we can put more parking spots, even for a couple of weeks, please call this number. Live operators are standing by, and I do almost every day. Now, given the $422 million maintenance repair bill already on the table, it is a good and fair question to ask, how are we going to pay for it? As I already mentioned, the funding options work underway on the state and regional level must move forward. Now, when it comes to streetcar, we're lucky, because if you pick the right routes, they help pay for themselves. Just along our existing system, we've seen $2.4 billion in private investment. An analysis of putting the streetcar on the Burnside-Couch couplet estimates that it will pay for itself with the increased valuation of the land around it in 14 years. A second option, a second imperative to pay for this kind of urban infrastructure is for the federal government to refocus and return its role as our nation's builder. Historically, the federal government has always picked up most of the tab for major infrastructure investment. In the 1950s, Congress set out the freeway plan that paid for 90% of freeways. If we were to stop the war in Iraq, it would save $175 million a day. Imagine what we could do with that here. And we need to impose, and U.S. Speaker Nancy Pelosi led this charge for the House Democrats, and we need to follow through on their early success and impose a federal tax surcharge on excess oil company profits resulting from price gouging. Now, in closing, I guess starting out with duct tape and adding baling wire to it and Band-Aids are apt metaphors for how we have funded many of our maintenance responsibilities and our transit and transportation projects. But if we continue along this path, we will fall behind, and we will fail to meet the needs of regional mobility. So in the intermediate term, we've got to invest in our basic road infrastructure. Access to safe, well-maintained streets are everybody's right, and consequently, everybody's responsibility. We must protect our land use laws to keep wonderfully diverse mosaic of safe, livable neighborhoods that make Portland special. Congestion paired with anticipated growth isn't just frustration. Without alternatives, it will be a billion-dollar burden. We must refocus our response to diversify our portfolio of travel choices, investing in real alternatives for around-town travel needs. And least but not last, global warming and peak oil are basically the exclamation point at the end of the travel choice sentence. The consequences of inaction are simply too dire to assume, and we cannot ignore these issues. Taken together, these actions will result in a transportation transformation. Simply put, as your transportation commissioner, I don't think we have a choice, and I hope you'll join me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Now we have time for questions. Asking questions is a privilege of City Club memberships. We would love it if you would limit your question to 30 seconds and end it with a question mark rather than an exclamation point. Now, I forgot my sign, so if you violate that rule, Larry and I are going to start waving our arms to let you know that you violated that. Our first question will be asked by today's City Club board host, Larry Wallach. Larry is Dean of the College of Urban and Public Affairs at Portland State University. He has master's degrees both from the University of Arizona and the University of California, Berkeley, and also received his PhD from Cal Berkeley. He's a founding senior fellow and first president of Rock Ridge Institute, a California-based think tank. Larry has appeared on numerous national and local news and public affairs television programs. He's been a City Club member since 2004. Larry?
Thank you very much. And Sam, thank you so much for that comprehensive vision you provided and also for the terrific service that you've provided to the city over the years. I want to be a bit of a skeptic, though. Many people who hear the word government immediately think inefficient failed programs that are wasteful. People don't want their hard-earned money going to government because they don't believe that the government can get the job done. You're proposing a local gas tax and other possible fees that you didn't touch on today but that are on the website. And I want you to tell us, what is your best argument, very concisely, to the taxpayer on why they should pay even more than they do now for something that they think they should already be getting for what they pay?
I think the best argument is that it's an investment in their own quality of life. It's an investment in their own economic security. And what I'm proposing is not a blank check. I'm not asking Portland taxpayers to write me or the city a blank check and say, just trust us, we'll do good things with it. What I intend to bring forward with the help of a lot of people, hopefully in this room and elsewhere, is an actual package of improvements that they can see where the money will be spent, when it will be spent, and exactly what are the benefits that they will get out of it. I think you've got to make it tangible and real. And in the 5 town halls that we've hosted around the city in the past 3 weeks, we went through an 85-slide PowerPoint presentation. I like to treat Portlanders like adults and give them the information that I have at hand so they can make informed decisions. And if after the presentation of the information, reasonable people can disagree, that's great. But I want people to know what's been going on for the past 25 years with this growing problem and let them decide, working together, how we're going to solve it.
Chris Smith, City Club member.
Doesn't Ray Polani normally get the first question?
I beat him to the microphone.
Hi, Chris.
Sam, this is not a glamorous topic, but it's an essential one, and I want to thank you for taking it on. As people know, I'm an alternative transportation advocate. I'd rather see people moving around by ways other than mostly driving alone. So it's a little counterintuitive that I might support an investment in roads. Could you explain why it's so important for all the other modes that we continue to maintain our road system? And part B, what can City Club do to help you during this process through now in January?
Thank you, Chris, and thanks for all that you do. I don't know if most people know that you're chair of the Citizen Advisory Committee for Streetcar. You run one of the most, how would I say, lively blogs for transportation. You're a great advocate for the best qualities of the Portland-style transportation and transit. Thank you. The best arguments are that where I think we need to focus the maintenance is on our arterial streets, which is just a fancy phrase for our busiest streets, the streets that buses are using now and will need to use in the future, and the bridges that buses use for bus transit. They're also the streets for freight, our freight routes. So I don't think that we're going to come up with $422 million overnight, and we're not going to be able to do everything at once. It's going to take many years to work our way out of this problem and still keep it affordable. So I think we focus on the streets that we are going to have to depend on in the future as peak oil impacts get worse. And those are the streets that transit goes on, and those are the streets that are used by freight.
Dave Graff, City Club member and a small business owner here in Portland since 1981. My business is involved in delivering delicate and expensive electronic equipment to locations, clients all over the metro area. As our freeways increasingly fill up with people who aren't from around here, my drivers tend to have to find more cross-country routes all the time. Our world is constantly impacted by city resources being spent on speed bumps and decommissioning of secondary arterials, and sometimes primaries. For instance, Northwest Skyline is no longer a primary arterial because it's a low speed limit and many speed bumps which will damage our equipment if we use that road anymore. So as a result, my guys have to decide to go way out and go over Newberry Road to get to Hillsborough, or sit in traffic for hours and hours, which costs me a ton of money. At what point do we recognize that closing secondary arterials increases congestion, or is that considered actually a positive move? I'm not sure. It's confusing for us as citizens. Many of us, bicycling and riding the bus and all that is really great, but without commerce, there's no jobs for the people who have to ride their bicycles and ride the buses. So at what point do we recognize that these arterials are important? Southeast 21st between Powell. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm done. Thank you.
It's a balancing act. We have to balance between speed, oftentimes speed and safety. One of the most, whether we like them or not, one of the most effective tools for slowing down cars are speed bumps. Those are the facts. More effective than even law enforcement, because the speed bumps are always there. At the same time, you're right, we've got to keep open pathways to move people efficiently from area, region to region. We're constantly looking at it, retooling it, constantly sort of changing it. Speed bumps go in when we have to see adequate support from the surrounding area. So we don't just put speed bumps in anywhere. We also, the fire department can veto where speed bumps go, and we don't put speed bumps on certain classifications of streets in certain neighborhoods. So I'd encourage you to stay in conversation with us, because we're always looking, things change very rapidly, and we're always looking to respond to the needs.
Hi, Tom Cirillo, City Club member and local arts nonprofit manager. Hi, I want to thank you first for, in addition to being the Commissioner for Transportation, for the leadership role you take in arts and culture as a recent attendee of the town hall you held for creative capacity. And when I tend to view, and I imagine you do as well, that the areas of public good of transportation and public good of arts and culture can tie in together very closely. And as I search my brain thinking for the new possibilities for public, private, profit, nonprofit partnerships for public buildings, I wanted to ask you the question whether the focus for the transportation plan should be always going into the downtown, or perhaps jumping off as a resident of the Yellow Line area, should we be thinking of creating a new arts center perhaps along the Killingsworth Transit Center area? And what are your thoughts? Should we maintain a downtown focus or look into other transit-appropriate areas?
Well, I think that we need to expand our focus from downtown. The Arts and Culture District in downtown, that needs to stay. We need to get that more solid, more sustainable, better funded. But I also think at the same time we need to have arts and culture facilities and assets and community centers throughout the city. And just a few blocks from the light rail stop on 82nd Avenue, we have under construction a live-work artist sort of colony concept with about 50 units of live-work affordable housing for sale, and another 50 that'll be for rent at a very low price. And we intentionally worked that particular site because it's close proximity to light rail. IFCC, which is interstate in Killingsworth, was going to close 2 years ago. And Jesse Beeson on my staff and a whole lot of other people have worked hard to not only keep it open, but now it's really had a renaissance and it's come roaring back to life. But implicit in your question, I think, is the seeds of an arts and culture facility vision that I very much support, and that is we should have arts and culture sort of satellite facilities all over the city, and they should be accessible with strong transit connections.
Thank you.
Hi, Sam. Barbara Hansen. I used to be Portland City Auditor. I still care about efficiency and effectiveness. And one thing that really gripes me is seeing a 2-lane downtown street reduced to 1 lane because of double parked trucks. And I wonder if there is something that you can do about that. That we give them those lovely loading zones and they won't use them.
So I was driving to work the other day, contributing to the problem, and I couldn't get over the Morrison Bridge, so I took the Hawthorne Bridge, and I noticed that the Morrison Bridge was backed up all the way over almost to the freeways on the other side. And I called our hotline, and I said, what the heck's going on here? And we found, we dispatched some folks and found that a loading truck was double parked, leaving 1 lane open, and they were unloading rental equipment. Little did they know, they had traffic backed up at the AM peak hour, the morning peak hour, all across the Willamette River. And we began a very serious and comprehensive discussion at that point with freight delivery people. At the same time, we're exploring what we can do to, frankly, increase the fines. Because the fines right now are so small that we have some indication by some operators, and most of the freight folks are just fantastic. So I really want to emphasize just, I think, a small portion don't know or don't appear to have as much concern for this issue as it sounds like you do and I do. So it is a serious issue now when so much of downtown is constricted with construction. In many places, we just cannot afford to have double parks. And so the other thing we're doing is we are going out with Ann Gardner and the Freight Advisory Committee, and we're identifying places where we could have loading zones during the AM or PM. That, of course, has to be balanced with then there isn't parking for customers, so we're working on it.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr.
Ray
Polani.
Polani, an old City Club member. You are the Transportation Commissioner for all Portland, not just downtown west. Looking at the future with the north-south regional line to Milwaukee, will you demand also the inclusion for consideration of an east side direct north-south light rail alternative?
Did you say consideration?
I said demand for consideration, yes. Inclusion of a north-south direct east side alternative along the others.
Yes.
Thank you.
Tanya March, City Club member. I was wondering what the status was on having a pedestrian overpass on Flanders. There was talk of moving that Selwood Bridge there at one point, and I don't know where that effort has gone.
This gives me a great opportunity to introduce my Senior Policy Director for Transportation Issues, and I'd like you to give him a rowdy round of applause because he's got a really hard job. Roland Schapowski, stand up. So like any good boss, I gave Roland this problem to figure out. No, actually, one of what we're working on is the idea of using the old, not so old, but soon to be it is old and soon to be moved Sabi Island Bridge. And to move it, the old structure from Sabi Island, we'd probably have to put it in storage for a little while to raise the money, but to use that as the pedestrian and bike overcrossing on Flanders between the west and east side over I-205. It's very exciting. This was an idea that I think came out of the neighborhood. I think it's a very exciting idea. There's a premium to be paid for taking a lead-covered bridge and using it. So we're in discussions with the neighborhood, the Pearl District neighborhood, to gauge their interest. So far, the initial feedback has been very, very positive, very exciting. So we're seeing what we can do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You've left the City Club speechless in a way. The line never ends, but it ended today. So I have another question, just in case. So you did present, I think, a very ambitious, exciting, and expansive transportation agenda, which I think is quite exciting. But it strikes me that a lot of what you talked about and the tone that you had was kind of a we can do this on our own approach, again, with local taxes and fees. What is the state's role? Doesn't it have a responsibility to provide a fair share? What is its fair share? And how are you going to work to force the state to really deliver on helping Portland and the region reach its promise in terms of transportation?
Well, it is going to take not just local resources, but I want to clarify what in my conversations with state legislators and my conversations with our federal delegation, they have said repeatedly they will do they will raise money to give to us for a certain amount of transportation improvements, a certain kind of transportation improvements, but in terms of their ability to raise the gas tax to the level that we actually start digging our way out of the maintenance and safety hole, I just don't think that's going to happen. In order for them to do that, after it sort of filters through that state funding formula where we only get 46 cents on the dollar to generate the $40 million a year through the funding formula, after the funding formula, to get the kind of resources we would need, they would have to raise the gas tax, we estimate, 30 cents a gallon. And I just don't see that happening, ever. So, but the appropriate role that they can play is they need to push forward with a gas tax increase or some sort of funding increase on the state level to deal with the issue of we need help paying for to provide the transportation choices that I talked about. Other communities have different transportation needs. Our need to get people out of single occupancy vehicles and to give them more realistic transportation choices is what we need. So I hope that the state will tailor its funding decision-making to the unique needs of every city and not just think that, you know, they're going to give us the money with lots of strings attached that might work for Corvallis or Albany but don't work for us.
Before I thank Sam, I want to thank you. I think the size of this crowd on a Friday afternoon in the summer is just a great reflection on citizen engagement in Portland, and thank you very much for coming. Sam, thank you very much. We hope you come back and see us again. We're adjourned.